Welcome to the Sweet Spot Podcast, where we're all about helping players, coaches, and parents get the most out of the game. Whether you're stepping up to the plate, coaching from the dugout, or cheering from the stands, we got you covered with expert tips, strategies, and insights to make youth sports a better experience for everyone. Each episode, we'll share our own experiences and bring on special guests who will offer valuable advice on skill development, teamwork, and creating a positive environment for growth both on and off the field. So let's dive in and make the game even sweeter.
Play ball.
Welcome to another episode of the Sweet Spot Podcast. Super excited to be here with our guest, Dalen. He's not our guest, he's the co-host. But Adrian Lorenzo, welcome. Thank you for being here. I know you're familiar with the space. Thank you for some of the beautiful artwork you've done here, and we're looking forward to getting some of your wisdom.
Oh shit, man! Thank you guys. I appreciate it. It's an honor to be on. I've been watching you guys from not just from afar, but episode to episode, and I have the benefit of seeing the arc of this concept from ideation through now. How many episodes in?
I got 10-ish.
9, 10,
yeah,
11 maybe.
That's awesome, guys. That's really, it's really cool. It's really something, and I have a deep appreciation for people going out and doing things that they're passionate about. And where something is an idea or a dream in your head or something that you really want to do, and then actually taking the actions to make it happen. And as you see, there's a lot of steps to this process just to do it. So, and my favorite part is that it doesn't happen without El Hijo de Chati, Junior Alonso over here.
Junior.
Which, to my understanding, this is how Junior is how this all comes together. This collaboration comes together. And I love that it was you guys had a concept. We were running in a similar direction with the company, with Cultura Media House and 786 Sports. And then both these things can kind of overlap, especially through friends and especially through 1 degree of separation and all these other super Miami ways that everybody is connected in here. But to then be on this side of 10 episodes where you guys show up and you're developing from episode to episode, and guests, content, like the context of the show, the subjects. I'm a big fan, so it's cool. I'm honored to be a small part of this. So
thank you. We appreciate it, and we were going to talk baseball, but I think we could talk art and leave this guy out of it. Since
I'm down.
He's a great artist at his own right. What do you think?
I think 3 baseball people sitting in a room, 4 baseball people sitting in a room, we're going to end up talking about baseball anyway.
No matter what.
It's like that magnetic pull that my wife makes fun of me all the time. It's like we always end here somehow, especially when you're with people who, are baseball inclined or baseball interested. So I have a feeling that's going to come up anyway.
Yeah.
So whatever you guys want.
So talking about art, right? Like, I think we share some sort of connection through art that we didn't even know. We thought it was baseball, and obviously we're closer minded than what we think. I loved art myself since I was growing up. Even did AP art in high school, and now coming on here. Stop. Coming on here, wanting to, as somebody that has big imagination, right? I think all artists do. Wanted to start this podcast and then run into you and seeing all this beautiful art here. There's that close connection that we could kind of relate to for sure. And happy to be here. Excited. It's been definitely quite
a journey.
And
I want to say both of them are freakishly talented in art. Like you're insane. You're phenomenal.
Thank you.
And we go back, Dylan and I, 2-3 years, and I had no idea how talented you were. And it's never come up on any of the episodes.
It's a fun story,
Adrian. By the way, we started talking about maybe doing a podcast and getting started with all of that. I will say that my creative side of art is drumming, percussion. I played for 6 years.
It's a musical creativity.
Yeah, it's not at all with sketching or anything. But I gave it my shot. We came up with a concept of our logo, and I tell him, I'm like, look, I'll sketch something out. Wow.
we verbally discussed
Yeah.
it, right? And I told you what I kind of wanted, and you're like, yeah, I like it. Yeah, I'm gonna
I'll
try
get on it. I'll get on it. It was. I'll put
It was-
pictures
What was this logo for this?
for this
sweet
for the
spot.
sweet spot.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Great.
then,
So
then
the real initial
Yeah.
parts
Yeah,
of this
yeah.
idea.
So
like the idea for the sweet spot was, I was like, okay, I'm gonna turn the bat into an S, right? Make it wrap around, right? So I explained him this entire thing. We talked about how it would all look.
The O of the spot is going to be the baseball, and it's going to be right aligned right on the sweet spot of the bat.
Did you nail it?
Brother? Did I nail it? I'm going to show the pictures of my sketch compared to what the end result was. I'm going to
then
put myself out there.
We compared, and then he's like, he calls me back and he goes, "Why'd you do this to me?
Yeah.
Like, what do you? Why'd you make me waste?
3 hours for like stick figures if you are able to do this."
Like, I didn't ask you to.
And then he sends me a sketch, which is insane, of something that he did with an image of his son. Off camera, I'll show it to you. It's unbelievable.
That's awesome. What I'm hearing there is like collaboration, though, because I feel like that's how so many ideas end up coming to existence in here, where they get like sketched out a little bit, or they get like taken off the ground just off the ideation point. The important thing is the idea into action, especially like initial action to take those first steps. Sounds like that was part of that, to then have somebody you're collaborating with take it to a whole other level. That shit happens in here every day, and it's why I love being in here all the time, and that's why I love collaborating with new people who are energetic about, in this case, it happened to be baseball, so we're common ground already there. And then I think maybe on a more out there level, like that, connected creatively speaking as well, because I do believe that creatives they're kind of all staring and looking in the same direction. And when you see somebody doing like going after a creative venture, you're like, kind of gives your own, there's a connection there, there's a resonance there. And I think that we find that a lot with the people we end up collaborating, even though something might be about combat sports down there, or basketball over there, or
Hockey.
Yeah, hockey. We're about to dive into college hoops and women's sports, like women's hoops, through some other collaboration. So, but like we all circle around the creativity and then kind of leverage that here. So, yeah, man, that has to happen somewhere for this to get to a point where you're doing it like you guys are, and I celebrate that, man.
Thank you,
Good for you
thank you.
guys.
Let's talk a little bit about Adrian Lorenzo, right? Worked in front offices for multiple years, baseball background,
Yes.
and like we discussed, art kind of took over.
Sure.
But you're still in the realm of baseball, obviously, like us in a different dynamic. You love what you do with the sports side. So can you give us a little background on where you came through the game?
Sure.
How you evolved into, working in front offices and obviously now, being able to share this with us.
Sure. So I guess it starts at the very beginning. My family's just a baseball family. My dad played baseball. His dad's played baseball. Not at the professional level, but it just felt like I grew up. I was born in Hialeah, raised here, like right by the airport, or in the city of West Miami here. So just kind of west side of Miami, and was an athletically inclined kid from the beginning. And at 3 years old, you're just kind of at a baseball field, and that was really the only thing I did. Right. Then you become interested in the Marlins, and you stay. All my best friends were my teammates. I played at International growing up, my whole career down here, and all my circle of friends are from my baseball teams. It was just my parents' friends are the parents of the other baseball kids, which I'm sure you guys are squarely in the middle of that lifestyle too. So I was another one of those kids. Got a little better as high school started to get around in terms of, I was a very average baseball player. I was a really fast, athletic, defensive kind of minded player, but I could never impact the ball enough to be like a real hitter. I can go get it in the outfield. If I could have played short, I'm left-handed, so I can never play the position I thought I was best equipped to play, which was, I'd argue, was shortstop the whole way through. But they don't let the lefties play shortstop, which I get it, but it crushed my dreams then. And you can't put it was always the bigger power hitting kid at first base. Even though my best defensive position would have been first base, I didn't get to play it because like, no, just go to center field. You can run, you can catch, like go stand out there. Center field was always a little boring for me, but that's the position that I played. And I got a little better into the high school years. I ended up going to Belen and playing my 4 years at Belen Jesuit. And then when I started playing high school ball, I took things to a different level in terms of seriousness with which I took the game. My goal quickly became like, okay, how do I get into the best school possible using baseball? Like, I know I'm not going to the University of Florida. I'm not going to Florida State to play. I see those guys, like we play with them all the time. Like, I'm not quite there, but I can play somewhere and I could leverage the fact that I got pretty good grades and had like a good education to feel like, okay, what's the best academic school I can get into and still play baseball? And that turned out to be the University of Pennsylvania. So I took I had never really been playing out of Miami, played all year round here in good weather. And then I get transplanted to Philadelphia to play baseball. And that was a whole other new experience. Like the Ivy League baseball schedule structure, playing in that part of the country in the Northeast was just a completely different brand of baseball than the one I was used to.
A little tough.
It was, for me, it was like
brutal.
It was, what did I do when I first got here? I tell this story all the time of like, it was like our first time going outside. So you get there in August, it's nice. You get some nice weather. You're not playing baseball yet. You start to do some fall ball stuff and the weather is starting to get a little colder, but it's like, whatever. Then you go back home and you train and you hit in the cage, you hit at Tropical, you hit at Miami, you hit like, and it's hot and sunny. And then you go back to Philadelphia for January. And that's like the ramp up to the season, brother. That was the most I've been culture shocked from a baseball standpoint.
Bone chilling, I'm assuming too.
It was in Philly. I don't know if you've been to Philly, but like Philly starting in November, it starts to get dark at 3:45 p.m. And like, it's just like rainy, grungy. I like Philadelphia a lot, but for baseball in particular, it's like wet, cold,
dark,
like slushy snow everywhere in the middle of a big city. And so that's how my college career started. I remember we went the first time, back to the story, going outside. Our coach wanted us to go outside, but it was snowing like blizzard. I'm like, what are we talking about going outside? Like, we've been practicing inside for a little while. He's like, no, we have to get some outside exposure. And so we go outside and we go to the football field, which is the only artificial turf field on campus. Bro, they had plowed the snow to the sides, and the snow was like, felt like 10 feet high, maybe like 6 or 7 feet, like enough for it to be taller than you. And it was just plowed off to the side. And I remember my throwing partner overthrew me, and the ball went past me and it wedged in the wall of snow. And I'm walking over there getting it and like really questioning my decision of like, why am I here? Who chooses this for baseball? Like, this doesn't make sense.
Why did I do this?
And it got better from there. I ended up having like, I loved my playing experience and my college experience overall at Penn. Played right away, played all throughout my 4 years. Had probably my best year, my sophomore year, statistically speaking. But I never really figured out how to hit. I can always find a way to be in the game defensively and base running wise, and always had I would do well on the athletic testing, on the plyometric measures. I was a good athlete and I could really throw and run, but I just could never really impact the ball with authority. I tried different swing sets. I tried different stances. It didn't come. And that was probably like my overall limitation, to then, continue playing after that. So I played my 4 years and I wanted to keep playing. But I also had never had a job before. And it was like, there's pressure to finish baseball. And now what? That was a rough transition for me. I don't know if it's as rough for other people as it was for me.
I think it's rough for almost everybody.
When that jersey gets ripped off your back, and you're not ready for that yourself, you're not like you've mentally, it's possible, but you don't mentally accept it, and then you finish playing, your season's over, and you're like,
no.
You know that the last game is gonna come. Eventually.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that, I mean, for me, what did me in was my shoulder, my rotator cuff.
Yeah, that's tough.
And it was almost at my peak. I was getting to my peak, and getting that jersey ripped off of you, it was tough. And what actually kept me somewhat sane was golf. And
So you found another outlet.
I found another outlet, and for a few months it wasn't pretty.
Yeah.
I was in a lot of pain, physically, but mentally as well. I was like, I'm so close, like I'm right there. But yeah, that last game that you played, at least you knew when you were going through it. I had no idea. And for some people, you never know.
Well, you have it's because it's so tied to, at least for me, it was so tied to identity. Like my identity was completely wrapped up in being a college player, like a baseball player.
Yep.
Right. And so when that wasn't true anymore, and now I'm like
who am I?
Yeah. And I started to work right away. I was finishing playing, and then a week later, I was in Los Angeles interning for a company at the time. It was called Wasserman Media Group. It's called Wasserman now. But I started as an intern in their team sports division, just because a teammate of mine at Penn, his dad was one of the principal agents at this place, and I got to know him through that relationship, and he was kind enough to interview me and offer me an internship. And so I went out there from Philly to Los Angeles and, was working in their team sports. It was mostly basketball and baseball. But because I grew up in Miami and my parents are from Cuba, I was first language Spanish speaker. And I arrived at a place where the baseball division, especially a guy named Adam Katz was the first guy I worked for at Wasserman. He represented a lot of Spanish-speaking players. And there was nobody in the office that spoke Spanish at the time in the office in LA. And so I kind of found this niche right away so I'm like still in this baseball world immediately. I never left baseball, still haven't arguably, but I was able to leverage the skill set and kind of find a way to be valuable to the process. And at that time in particular, he had just recently signed Yoenis Cespedes as a client. And so I immediately got into this dynamic where Adam didn't speak Spanish and Yoenis didn't speak English. And so I was immediately standing in the middle of his interactions with his most kind of priority item at the time. And that's how like my baseball career gets started, through this Spanish speaking capability while still having baseball experience. And so it was that internship turned into a full-time job where I was almost like an executive assistant type to an agent. So kind of like Lloyd and Ari and Entourage. Like I did a lot of those like random tasks, low man on the totem stuff, internship, mailroom, and kind of that way. But I got a lot of high level access because I was sitting in all these rooms being the interpreter and just, and that kind of rolled into me taking on a larger position at that company at Wasserman. And then I met this guy, Lenny Strelitz, along the way, who's also an agent at Wasserman, but he was a former scout and kind of scouting related person. He was working as an agent, but he was trained classically as a scout, right? At high levels. And I think even scouting director at a certain point, Expos and some other organizations. But that was the first time I saw like, oh, what's that? Like I had interacted with scouts before. Ralph Reyes here. Like I had some interaction, and in college talked to some as well as the draft was leading up. But Lenny was the first one where I saw like, oh, he's evaluating the player to then make a decision on them as a client. And Lenny was kind enough he was going after some Dominican pitchers as well, and he needed this language gap bridged, and there I was. So he brought me on a scouting trip. I remember to Spokane, Washington. Went from LA to Spokane, Washington to go see the Spokane, Washington, the Rangers. It was a Rangers affiliate. Rangers short season rookie ball. Yeah. And on that team was Nick Martinez, Jorge Alfaro, Hanser Alberto, Kyle Hendricks. I said Jorge Alfaro already, but they had this who's who of like stud prospects there. And I got there and I was like, oh shit, like here's this agent. Cause I thought I wanted to go down the agency path. I didn't really think about working for a team. When I started to see and look into the scouting stuff, I started to talk to more scouts and think about the game from a whole different perspective, because the game is a whole different perspective from the perspective of an evaluator versus a coach, even, for example. I think these two things are fundamentally, it's just different angles to watch the game and different considerations. And that was the first time I had like seen that. And I just gravitated toward it. The problem with the agency side of thing, though, is that it becomes mostly about the business aspect of it, the revenue generation by the player component, where I wanted to keep going down the path of like evaluating the player. And then I was like, oh, this is what teams do. So I was like, oh, can I be a scout? And then I started to learn more about the front office side of things. And then I learned about Theo Epstein. And then I was like, oh, that's what I like, yeah. That's what
the path you want to take.
That's the path I want to take. So I asked Adam at the time if he could help me basically quit being an agent and help me land a position with a team. And then, funny enough, one of my very good friends from my baseball team at Penn is going to turn down a Boston Red Sox player development internship in Fort Myers, Florida. Like lowest internship you could get in the spring training complex. But he was a finance guy going to work and get paid big dollars. He's like, I can't take this Florida minimum wage thing. But he said, but I know somebody who I think would be a good fit for this. And he recommended me. And then Adam called their general manager and gave me like the final nudge to like, hey, take a look at this guy. And that's my initial in with the Boston Red Sox. That's my first time working for a professional baseball team. Fort Myers, intern for their player development department right at the end of spring training. So at extended spring training of 2013, I arrive at the Boston Red Sox facility into Florida Gulf Coast student housing, like cheapest apartment I could find, and went into this like, those next 2 years would be the hardest I've ever worked in my life. Like, you're young, you don't have attachments, and like you got to go pick up the guys at the airport. That's your first duty that you start every day with. You drive at 4:30, 5 o'clock to the complex, pick up the van, take it to the hotel where mostly the Latin players are staying, pick them up, and now make 2 trips back to the complex. It's like 15, 20 minutes away. And then you start your day of video in this era before automated video. So it's literally me, a tripod, SD cards, batteries, and like running open side. Okay, lefty, go run to the other dugout, like the guy sprinting in Fort Myers in the summer. But I got to learn about professional baseball at the basic, like first entry point to professional baseball for a lot of kids. So, and it was with the Boston Red Sox, and that was 2013. I get there in April. They're winning the World Series in October. So I get into this thing that's going really well, and that organization, man, I can't, that's the reason I have continued to be in baseball is because of the Boston Red Sox organization. That's what started my journey. And we win that October of 2013, and then I'm getting offered a second internship, but in Boston at the end of that time. And that's where I take that second internship up in Boston to be a baseball operations office intern. It was basically like a graduation from that first internship into now you're working in the office in Fenway. So I was reporting to Fenway Park every day for work, which was a trippy, super cool. We were Red Sox guys growing up. My dad was Louis Tiant and all that. So to work for that team was incredible. And that started the journey of me working in the more executive kind of track than player development or scouting. So I did that. That was year 2014. And oddly enough, circumstances, the Red Sox trade for Yoenis Cespedes as I'm working for the Boston Red Sox. So I had this interaction with and pre-existing relationship with before. So when he gets traded, I'm sitting in the office and I get pulled in to be his interpreter. And so I start traveling with the major league team at that point as an intern. And that flips into the next role, which is me working full-time in uniform as a major league staff assistant with the Red Sox in 2015. And that was me leveraging all my things I did as a baseball player, I'm left-handed, throwing batting practice, hitting fungos, doing all sorts of extra hand on the field kind of thing, but also doing the replay. So I was the replay tech back in 2015, which was, a whole other way to watch the game totally. Like you're watching, you have all these angles, and it was Torey Lovello, who was the bench coach at the time. He's the manager for the Diamondbacks now. He was the guy on the other end of the phone. And we were talking all game in terms of, hey, what happened there? What do you got there? and now it's actually challenge time, and like all of Fenway Park is holding on what you're saying, like yes or no. So watching the game with that on the line every pitch and having to know every rule was probably the most, I don't know. That's where I learned about baseball and Major League Baseball, especially the most.
There's a lot of pressure, I'm guessing.
It was an insane amount of, felt like an insane amount of pressure because of how
And you have to stay logged in every single pitch.
and the people you work for, the people you work for are expecting that.
Yeah.
And it's like at the major league level, everything is on the line. Like just to keep a 26-man roster spot on a major league team, like that's a guy's whole livelihood. Same for a coach, same for an executive. Like what's on the line in these places, especially,
those are top-notch decisions that now you're driven into that decision making, and you know that your decision, yes or no, is gonna affect the game.
It did, and you would get a lot of texts about the outcomes after too. You get like you're impacting the games, and in Boston and Fenway and Red Sox Nation, when you understand those layers, I'm glad I wasn't as like terrified about it then as when I think about it now. I was like, damn, I might, it's a lot now, but I was kind of young and just like baseball interested. And Torey Lovello was awesome, man. To have somebody on the other side of that phone not be some like nervous, like frantic, like what's going on? Like he understood I was like a young kid just trying to survive in that thing. And I got to a point where I thought I was pretty good at it. We were like the most aggressive team in total challenges that year, stuff like that.
Any one time that you were like, I nailed it?
Bro, yeah, actually. There was a couple times. It was once against the Astros, and we were at a point in the season where we were still in it. So it's like big time baseball. I'll never forget. Remember Chris Carter, big right, Chris Carter, big dude. He slides into second in one of those Fenway doubles. He slides into second, safe. Like it's clearly like the ball, he beats the ball to the bag, but he has this moment where his foot slides past the bag and his back foot is figure forward in the back, and the base is squarely in between his feet, but he's off the bag because he's like kind of tipped over.
Get the tag on him.
The thing is, nobody's asking you, is that out or safe? It's so obvious the ball beat him there that like you're not going to challenge that, like whatever. But you have to be the one to pick up the phone and call and be like, hey, he's off here. And that has to be you doing imagine a guy rounding first. You have to check, did he touch first? Did he all these things. And in that particular moment, there was like a moment to be like, to call, stop the motion of the game. The pitcher has to step off for you to like challenge it. Everybody's like, dude, that was safe. Obviously, like, what are you, an idiot? Like, but in the replay, it got turned over, and it was just a big moment in that season. And that one stands out a lot. And then another like Rick Porcello, I remember he was on the mound. He had a good quick pickoff move, and he picked over, and like it looked on the visual like the tag missed, right? Like that. He went back standing, but like in the replay, it just did like hit the jersey like a little bit. The tip of Napoli's glove hit the jersey, and it just like nicked it. And it's another one of those where like if you think about the rhythm of a game and a pitcher, he just like gets a ball, picks over, safe. Okay, I'm gonna go get back on the mound. So you have to like, hey, call, stop, like step off. And again, the guy goes back in standing. Like it doesn't look like a close play at all. And so you see Rick on the phone like, what are you doing, Adrian? Like, and sure enough, I go back and you see the little tag, and it turns the game around in that scenario. Like it shifts the momentum of that game. So you asked the question if any stand out. Those. And then the ones you get wrong all stand out. So we don't need to talk about those all the time.
That's why I went to the positive.
Yeah. So that was my real education to Major League Baseball. And the benefit of that position was I was forward facing with any Latin player, especially. So anytime anything would come up that needed translation or interpretation, I would get brought into the manager's office. I would get brought into the GM's office. I was kind of the making sure you understand and then making sure I convey that back. And then I was the forward face to the Boston press. You know, those interviews where the guy's standing next to you, that was me. I was one of those, like the guy next to him, like listening and then giving you the English, which was great. I'm glad it worked in that direction. I very rarely had to be speaking Spanish other than to the player. So to the player, I can communicate, in whatever way, informal, like what was being said. But then like I had because my English is stronger than my Spanish. I just think in English. I dream in English. It's just, so I would be interpreting everything I said, but I had to say it back to the media in English. So it's
an easier language.
It was an easier kind of delivery for me to kind of just be on Nessun every night, like Rusney Castillo or some other guy standing next to me, and doing press conferences and stuff like that. That was a whole other way to see the game, but also to interact with the players. I was very directly interacting with players and staff, and that would later kind of just shape the rest of my baseball career, because I still to this day utilize that year in particular, those 2 years, as like where I feel like I learned about Major League Baseball in a way that was like, a lot of people say that they know the inner workings of that day to day and those mechanics, but that's hard unless like you go through the motion of a major league season, for example, whether from that point of view, a player, staff member. And that's probably been the most educational year of my life, and then would lead to, I couldn't do that job of traveling with the team anymore, like, because I was hopefully starting a family at that point, and a major league schedule, you're with them 10 months out of the year, wherever they go, you go. It's hard for family establishment. So I wanted to stay in the game, and remembered those conversations with Lenny about scouting. It's like, oh, maybe I can look into the scouting side. And then a guy by the name of Eddie Romero, who was running the international department, I told him that I wasn't going to be returning to that major league staff role, and he brought me into his scouting department, which oversaw all of Latin America and a lot of Asia as well. And so he offered me a full-time job to be working for him, traveling Latin America, finding Latin American baseball players, pretty much. But helping him, I was his assistant director of international scouting. So I was doing a lot of the going and being a scout and an evaluator and learning that whole process, but also big picture helping him run the department, contracts, bonus pool allocation, identification of players, management of your scouts. And at that time, international scouting also included the Dominican Academy, even though that's technically player development in a lot of,
right.
Like it was the scouting and it was the initial development at the Dominican Academy. So it was really a scouting and player development role. And that's where my journey with Latin American players began. Really, or not began because I started, in internship roles, but now I was
directly involved with everyday.
Correct. Of a specific department, which was international, mostly Latin American scouting. And that's where I started going to the Dominican once, 1 week out of every month I was in the Dominican. 1 week out of every month to other month I was in Venezuela. And then visiting and scouting all the places in between Colombia, Panama, Curacao, Aruba, Brazil, Nicaragua, Mexico, Bahamas, basically anywhere that baseball is played in any sort of meaningful way. I've probably been there many times at this point. And that's what I ended up doing for the next 4 years with the Red Sox. Just running around Latin America looking for players. And I learned the game from a whole other angle there.
So you went from not traveling with the team to now traveling all of South America.
Right. Going to work more, be home more and travel. But I ended up traveling a ton. The benefit is the Red Sox let me live in Miami and do that job.
Got it.
I didn't have to live in Boston and also travel Latin America. That would have compounded issues. So I got to move back home to Miami, but because now you're in Miami, you're quick flight to everywhere. So you're the guy that goes at least on the initial trip. And there I got humbled into, I think most scouts and evaluators get humbled too, where you think you know about something and you think you know about scouting and about evaluating players. And then you actually work with people who do that for a living. You're like, damn, dude, I don't know shit. Like the beauty is that I was educated in the game from a major league angle, because everything in scouting works backwards from the major leagues. Like you're really reverse engineering major league players. That's what scouting is at a certain extent. It's an art, not a science. But I thought, like most young kids, you think you have it figured out. And I had just been working for the big league club, and I was like, oh, the gap to now like evaluate 14, 15, 16-year-olds, it's like a whole other game. So I'm glad I got to know what it needs to look like at the big league level. But then I went to the other end of the spectrum to try to figure out how it gets there, or who's got the best chances to get there.
And what did you learn in one of those trips evaluating such young talent that you were like, I would have never thought about looking into X?
So many things. We can go deep down this rabbit hole. Bigger picture, I thought defense mattered a lot more than it does as it relates to major league value, which is what you're trying to identify with scouting. You're not just trying to pick out good players, you're trying to pick out major league impact, talent, and tools. So like, if you don't hit as a position player in today's day and age, like your glove cannot carry you through all the way to value the way it needs to for you to have a real shot. Like you need to be an offensively driven player. And at the beginning of my scouting career, I thought I could just like gravitate toward the best defenders with the best skills, and that you'd figure out hitting enough to make it. It's the other way around. Like the more innate skill needs to be hitting as a position player. Pitching is a whole other conversation. But you asked me some of the things that stand out. That's one of them. I had my convictions. And I remember like having it out with other more seasoned scouts that are like, you'll get there. You'll figure this out. And then it's true, man. It's true. As you watch the arc of the journey of a minor league player, as a position player, if you don't bang, like you're not going to get that next graduation. And if you do get it, you're not going to get the playing time at that level if the other guy hits. So it just shifted the way I thought about scouting, and I started looking for that more heavily, and that was an evolution for sure.
And you can get to the next level, but if you're not there fully developed yet,
Right.
offensively, you're either going to get stuck there or eventually get pushed back down.
Right. You kind of hit like a stalling point in terms of value if your bat reaches a point where it just doesn't play at this level, because there's only 26 guys on a roster on most teams, 13 position players, 13 pitchers. If you have 9 starters, you can really only carry 4 more guys. And so those extra guys have to have like, you can live on a major league roster as like a defensive specialist, but to get to the big leagues, you got to hit no matter what. And I watched the journeys of some guys who I thought like, wow, this guy defends at an elite level, but like he can't stay on a major league roster because you can't like, it's hard to just be an out on a major league roster. And so extend that out into the minor leagues. That's how you think about and develop players. So offense really, I needed to become a better evaluator of hitters even than I thought I needed to be. But it's still the hardest thing to get right as a scout.
And Adrian, now that you tapped into that, obviously from a player development standpoint,
yep.
I wanted to cover, because we want to talk a little bit on the podcast about data analytics,
sure,
getting the fans and the audience a better understanding of where the game is at and how big it has been driven by data. So we want to kind of tap into the sabermetric side, give them an explanation of what it is, and today initially just kind of cover WAR, WAR numbers, what it means, what it represents, how it creates player value.
What is it good for?
Nailed it. There he is. There he is.
Bro, you lobbed it up? Whatever.
There it is. There it is. All right.
You said it, he spiked it.
Yeah.
It's wins above replacement. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Wins above replacement.
Sure.
So we wanted to kind of get your perspective. Obviously, sabermetrics started being coined. I think I have here Bill James in the 1980s.
James. I worked with Bill James at the Red Sox actually.
And
worked for the Red Sox when I got there.
Yeah, and it was obviously a lot of people have seen Moneyball and how it transformed the game and how it started, changing the mindset of teams and organizations and how they kind of went about their business based on whether it was stadiums, whether it was whatever many things you could possibly think of.
Yep.
And again, I wanted to bring you in because I know obviously your experience with the Red Sox. And obviously Fenway and the Green Monster has an impact on what players they pursue, how they pursue it, the value of each player. Sure. So I wanted to kind of touch base on all of that and see your perspective on it. And again, we could start with how much has sabermetrics, how much has data changed scouting, player development side, and if you could give us some information on that.
Fundamentally changed it, but not totally altered it so that it's the only thing that you look at and consider. So I look at it like when you look at the weather, you can look out and be like, oh, it looks hot, sun's out. Like, okay, it's probably hot. Or you like pull up your phone, you have a thermometer that says, oh no, it's actually 69 degrees and it's like clear skies. And like, it's the same thing. Like And that's how I view data and analytics. Like it's an explanation of what's happening, right? And a putting into numbers, which a lot of people's minds, especially like executives in baseball and like people who are analytically driven people, their minds work in numbers. And so it's just an explanation of the things that are happening, right? But they're so like omnipresent in baseball because there's so much money at stake. These things have been happening for a long time. So baseball kind of found the analytics revolution first, I think, of most of the sports. But then you've seen that like every sport employs all sorts of different analytics. Before it was statistical analytics, and now I think it's more comprehensive. Now we're at a point where it's not only statistical things that you would consider important in terms of painting the picture of who a player is, right? Like you now have biomechanical markers, you now have TrackMan data, you have impact velocities and angles. All these things are now part of that where they wouldn't have been considered in traditional sabermetrics, for example. They're now considered this big bubble, bigger umbrella of analytics and general analytical data, which is really just an explanation of what's happening from all these different markers. Now every team has like a Kinetrax, for example, now, which is it's biomechanical markers, and based on how your body is firing, the velocities, that how quickly you're turning your hip, and sequencing the kinetic chain to then translate to your hands being fast, all the way down to field tracking stuff, like how fast are you running, how fast is the ball coming out of your hand, like all those are data points too that are just all being leveraged, in my opinion, to their maxes now. Like, whereas when I started in baseball, there were seemingly big gaps between the teams who were employing this from a process level and philosophy level, and then other teams who made it a part of their identity and operated like that, made decisions along those lines. The problem with that is that always contrasts with a saltier, older school baseball person's version of the way the game should work. So you immediately had this oil and water contrast of the nerd versus the salty baseball scout and everything in between, right? Like thinking about those two perspectives kind of met in this Moneyball era because only few people were thinking in that way, like Branch Rickey. And like there are people that are predecessors, like data and math has been around in baseball since the very beginning. Averages, all of those things have been
part of the game.
Right. It's part of what made the game. I actually wrote my paper on this. Like baseball took off when America overall started using scientific method, like the implementation of that in baseball was like, that was the thesis that I wrote is like, that's when baseball took off because a lot of people that follow it in box scores or averages, like are able to participate in it because of the data, right? So it's actually essential to the founding of the game for data and analytics to be a part of it. But fast forwarding it all the way to now, like here are these guys in like slacks and a button, like, and seeming like pointing their glasses up, being like, hey, you shouldn't bunt in this situation. It doesn't say that it's a good outcome. Like the probability says blah, blah, blah. And then on the other side, you have Juan Perez from Dominican Republic being like,
man on first and second, of course I'm going to bunt. Yeah.
Like what? Yeah. Como? And then so baseball's been going through these growing pains, especially in that time, the Moneyball era. The teams that did it first got this big return, got this big, like, seems so obvious now, the Oakland A's and valuing on-base percentage. Now every team values on-base percentage first, really, over average. And you're seeing that with Juan Soto, right? Like in another era, a guy with a 270 batting average, and we can get into batting average. I'm not a fan of it as the only way to like view a player. But he's an on-base monster. Aaron Judge is an on-base monster. Shohei Ohtani is an on-base monster. Every good team is built with these on-base and slugging-driven monsters, whereas before we used a more average-based model. But as analytics evolve and mature, you start to see like the different layers that there are to this. And now we've arrived where those layers are now biomechanical. Those layers are now like objective tool grades. You could say like that guy's got a plus arm. It's like actually he's throwing the ball 84 miles an hour. That's actually pretty average. So like there's a way to quantify even those scouting subjective
Yeah, I mean
things.
the data's always been there. It's just how do you grasp that data to make it useful for what you want and how you want to interpret, moving forward.
But the interesting thing is that now the teams like today in 2025, and I've heard this from many working in the game, we've kind of like maxed out our ability to leverage that data into the game because you can prioritize data, you can know the numbers, you can have industry leading tech, but the game is still played by human beings with hearts and with minds and
with families and real life.
Right. And so like you get this like polarity of the best teams are the ones that can actually simplify and synthesize the advanced information that they are doing and calculating and chew it all the way down to a few nuggets that a player could then use. Like this. And it's so like we're swinging to like back to the human side because we've maxed out all the analytical edges or angles. So now who can best communicate that to the human? And it's a very human touch. So like a hitter, right? A hitter can go into a game right now and he's about to go face Paul Skeens, and you're a hitter in whatever dugout. You're going to go over to your coach and you guys are going to look at the iPad. What are you looking at? What are you hunting? What are you like, what does this say that you could do? And if you show a guy a chart with a bunch of scatter plots and red and cold here, he's going to be like, I can't hit like that. I can't hit like that. Like Derek Jeter was kind of like that. He said he looked middle every pitch, and that's him. But my point is now that major league hitting coach feels like it's his whole job to prepare this guy to go into that game and be at the peak of it. So his information has to be the best. But then what does that guy say to that player in that moment?
Yeah, how do you
that player can actually utilize? That's the whole game is right there right now.
Well, we live that obviously in a super elementary scale with our kids, right? Because we have all this information. We have, the knowledge of somebody that's played the game has a lot of information, which let's compare that to the analytics side. But now we have to kind of give it that digestive touch to be able to present it to a 10, 11, 12-year-old, which is it's a hard task. And I imagine it's difficult for you guys as well, because if I give all these kids all the information that I see and they're gonna look at me, and one, they're not gonna understand it. Two, they're gonna put a lot of pressure, and they're just gonna freeze and it's not gonna work. So I get that point of you have to make sure that you give it to them where it doesn't affect it doesn't take them away from their approach and what makes them good into what you're trying to get out of them to give them what you think is gonna benefit them more.